Hey, I know that you're super excited, so am I. I am Dr. Jefferson, and thank you so much for watching Life Discussions with Dr. Jefferson. This is a show where we reflect and talk about popular hot topics in the community and our society here in the United States and abroad, and very difficult, challenging topics. I explore the very difficult topics within our community, within the Black community, within the white community, within the American community, the difficult conversations around accountability that most people are afraid to, step into. I am here for it. So again, I appreciate you for taking the time out to click the play button, and I'm just waiting to come in and rock your world with the next topic. Hi. Welcome in. I need to make one quick revision really quickly while you guys come in. Pay attention to the banner. Don't forget to like and share the content. And of course, I'm going to post this little thing so you guys can come in on the show if you want to share your experiences. Okay, there we go. That's better. So I do not own rights to the music that you guys will hear playing in the background. As you come in, as I said before, don't forget to like and share the content. If you intend to join the show and you want to share your experiences live, I'm going to copy a link and I'm going to post it in the comment section of wherever it is that you're viewing this from. So you want to make sure that you go to the original space that it's airing from, the original space on social media, wherever you're looking at, so that you can click to join the show. Personal insights or experience. Let's do that. And that's the link right there. So you guys can check it out. It's below if you guys want to do that. But so I am Dr. Jefferson, and I'm putting it here so you can see it's there. You are currently tuning in to Life Discussions with Dr. Jefferson. We're going to talk about accountability, and we're going to talk about the Me Too movement. We're going to talk about some of the specifics, and this show kind of spirals off of a show that I had on, I think it was like yesterday or day before yesterday, and we talked about the world not necessarily positioning itself in a prepared state in regards to the LGBTQI plus community, and positioning ourselves in a way to be able to receive them. And one of the viewers mentioned several comments around the man boy love movement and their agenda being included in the BTQI community, and society normalizing that component. So I have some very specific areas of this conversation that we're going to discuss today. And I have a guest with me today, Kale. Say hi.
Hello, everyone.
Hopefully you guys can hear him. I'm going to turn the music down just a little bit, just so it doesn't overshadow, because I do have my mic on both sides. So you may have to speak up a little bit.
Okay, I'll do that.
So that they can hear you really good once we kind of get started. So we're going to talk a bit about accountability in the Me Too movement. And I kind of want to talk a little bit about some of the things, some of the areas that we explored when that viewer was commenting. But we only explored them quite briefly because like that show was about LGBTQI plus versus being, primarily around the things that happened, in the 90s around R. Kelly and Harvey Weinstein and things like that. So I want to have a very expanded conversation about that today. And I have had this conversation slightly before, but we're going to have that conversation because obviously that's something that you guys are impacted by and you want to talk about it more. And that's fine. And that's okay with me. I'm here for it. It is definitely going to qualify as one of those more difficult conversations because I feel like there are a lot of areas that we have treaded very lightly in when it comes to accountability and how society has shifted and shaped and things like that. So again, I'm going to mention that these are things that happened in the 90s, in the 80s, you know, when we're going back and we're looking at some of the cases that are now coming to the forefront of legal action being taken and things like that. And we're going to talk about the victimization, victim blaming. We're going to talk about all of that today. So let's just go back to the basis of accountability when we talk about the Me Too movement. So the Me Too movement was created by civil rights activist Tarana Burke, right? And it gained more traction, even though it was created in 2017, gained more traction here recently with the arrest of Harvey Weinstein as far as like in response to the allegations made against him and his partner. When we're talking about some of the people, young girls that they targeted and the way that they entertained those young girls and some of the sexual things that they did with those young girls and stuff like that. So these young women were teenagers, and one of the young women, when we heard about the full capacity of the story, was 19 years old, and her family members ended up being a part of or a party to some of the rape, date rape, and things like that were happening. So I want to get into this and I want to talk about it because I mentioned the date for a reason. So these dates have significance in understanding the way that society and the when that society evolved and shifted into different areas, right? So the Me Too movement is a movement where women primarily have positioned themselves in a space where they can feel empowered and supported by the community around them so that they can move into a place to speak out against the things that have happened to them and speak out to the public in a general way about their experiences and move into a place of healing, right? So these folks are trying to position themselves to be a pillar of the community when it comes to taking a stand against a particular type of behavior. That particular type of behavior is rape. Rapes happen in all types of ways. I always encourage people to understand that rape is everything that doesn't include a yes endorsement for the full capacity of the engagement of folks. And I know a lot of guys struggle with that. Even women struggle with that. Rape is something that happens when people are married. It's something that happens when people are in an intimate partner relationship where they're committed to one another. It's something that happens quite frequently around the world in general. I think that we have to be people that embrace the fact that these are things that happen every single day, multiple times a day, millions, if not trillions of times a day across the globe, period. There's a whole separate Me Too movement going on in India. We got one in Africa. They're everywhere now because women want to feel supported when they make allegations of rape. But I feel like the Me Too movement blocks the possibility that there may be more to these stories, right? And it's very easy for us to become a culture where we get into the ideas of, oh, we're going to turn a blind eye, or there needs to be a lack of accountability when these people are actually lying, right? Instead of telling the truth. And we call that victim blaming, right? Or victim shaming. And so that's I want to talk about where that comes from, or the idea of that comes from when we're talking about real events happening and there being a lack of accountability across the board for men or women who have committed these crimes against other people. So, do you want to contribute anything to the definition of what rape is?
Pretty much covered it all. That would be the same thing to me.
Okay.
Yes is yes and no is no. At
Right.
all times.
So, oftentimes during sexual assaults, and more often than not, two people are very consensual at the very beginning. But when I talk about consent, I want to make sure that people understand that when you're under the influence of anything that is a mind altering substance, there is no way you can legally or morally or ethically give consent. You just can't. And it doesn't matter whether or not you're like, oh, well, I remember everything. I remember everything. I remember every conversation. I remember every event. And I was under the influence of XYZ. Those things do not matter. You're not in a place where you can give consent effectively if you're under the influence of anything, because you have no idea how that substance, whatever that may be, is affecting your perception of what situations that you are in. Which is why in several cases where women do not report their sexual assault, they're questioning the validity of them in their claims, right? So they may be saying, okay, well, I live this type of lifestyle. And as a result of me living this type of lifestyle, people are not going to believe me. I've lost credibility because I went to this person's house or I went to this person's room, right? And they start to feel like they have no ground to stand on as they move into a place to where they want to hold those people accountable and make those accusations. So how do you guys feel? How do you guys feel about rape? I kind of want to put the question out there because I would love to know what sexual assault looks like for everybody else. I want to know what culture has taught you about sexual assault. I want to know what society has taught you about sexual assault. And I want to know what your personal experiences are. Even if you send it to me in my inbox or in my email, I would like to be a source of confirmation or a source of empowerment for you. Right? So I want you guys to feel validated in your experiences, but I want to be able to explore them with you in a very sensitive way that allows you to narrate your story in a place where you feel safe. Because essentially, we may discuss a lot of things here that may be an element of resonation for some folks, an eye-opening thing for some folks. But more importantly, what I want this to be and what I want this conversation to be is an opening point for us to engage in reflective conversations about situations you may find yourself in where unintentionally you may have rendered harm to someone else, or unintentionally you may have opened yourself up for opportunities where you could have been hurt. And as a result of that, you feel a less validity in your claims to whatever happened to you. And I want us to be able to embrace the fact that there is no fault one way or the other on your part when you end up in these situations. Sometimes life yields experiences, and those experiences are undesired, but life yields those experiences for us to learn and grow out of those situations or potentials for those situations in our future. And sometimes it's for us to help other people, not just ourselves. So as we get into this, I want you guys to know that this is in no way a replacement for the help that you might need as a result of having had those experiences, okay? having a conversation with a clinician is not the same as you going to therapy where that clinician is responsible for the oversight of your care. Me rendering my personal experiences or my personal perceptions around these topics are in no way reflective of my professional stance when it comes to these particular events or the element of healing, because that can look different for so many people. And so many people are at different spaces at different times of their journey in life when it comes to their perception of where they are and how much they are engaged in the process of healing. Another thing that I want to mention before we jump into the meat of this thing is not everybody's healing journey looks the same. So healing looks different for so many people. And at the different phase of healing, we are a different version of ourselves than we were at the very beginning, at the end, etc. So it's a continuum. You don't just wake up and overnight, you're in a different place altogether. Okay. So let's talk about victim/perpetrator issues. When people make endorsements of sexual assault, we call those people victims. The perpetrator is the person that the victim is saying committed this act, this vicious act, or this act in general against them. I talked a little bit about some of the issues around victims and perpetrators before when I talked about the credibility component. So oftentimes people are sexually assaulted and they feel like their life is now under a scope. And as a result of their life being under a scope, because they've made this allegation, they may or may not be believed. And this is something that typically will prevent them from providing their story or sharing their story or making that allegation, essentially. And I think that this is a thing that real perpetrators, right? I think this is a thing that they capitalize off of, especially those who are like serial rapists, serial assault engagees. So what are your thoughts, Kale, around the perpetrator and the victims of sexual assault?
That's a clear line to me.
Do you think sometimes
Right.
do you think sometimes people lie to, create a narrative that fits an alternative purpose?
That could be possible.
Do you think that that's something that makes it hard for people who have actually been assaulted? Do you think that's something that makes it hard for them to make allegations?
Yeah. I think that could be a crucial key into making allegation period. Yeah.
So how do you think people should move forward when it comes to making those allegations? If they really feel like they've been sexually assaulted, but they also are taking into context that the fact that so many people have lied in the past.
I think that depends on the individual and how traumatic that experience was for them. Because like I said, everybody heals different. Everybody accept trauma different. What they actually going to be different. Some may be immediate. Some may take years to come out.
Mm-hmm.
So it all depends on the formula that they put themselves in and how it comes out. Some need support for it to come out.
Do you feel like sometimes people are reluctant to share their story because?
Yeah, because what you said, because their life have not been quote unquote squeaky clean, so they don't think their credibility is gonna be squeaky clean. Because once you do that, forget the incident, your whole life become on the microscope. For that one incident you're trying to bring up, they go through your whole back from a baby till you grown to figure out how to discredit you. And the actual act could have actually happened to them, but they still gonna do it to you.
I have a lot of people when I have this conversation. A lot of people say that, okay, well,
sometimes backing outweigh the reason to move forward because you scared your past.
Right.
You know,
And that's what a lot of people tell me. A lot of folks are afraid to have the conversation because they're like, well, certain people deserve certain things. So if your lifestyle looks a certain way,
but your past don't
Alexa,
mean
stop.
the incident didn't happen though.
So you guys have to excuse my Alexa device. She'll just keep going. But so some people say that people in a certain lifestyle deserve certain types of behaviors, right?
Oh, they
Because their lifestyle yields this type of behavior. So when you talk about substance abusers, when you talk about sex workers and things like that, like sex is a part of that lifestyle in a much different way.
And stuff like that.
Yeah, sexual assault is also a part of that lifestyle in a much different way than most people who are, what I consider to be lay people in society navigating life through um, their regular lives that don't entail obsessions or being a part of those groups or whatever, right? Um, it's very hard for them to understand that people in these types of lifestyles will be assaulted, and there is validity in their claims that they were assaulted.
That's true.
But sometimes for me, it's hard having that conversation. What makes it difficult to have that conversation because I'm a person about accountability. So for me, accountability and victim shaming, that's a very different thing. So that's when I talk about victim shaming versus investigating. So I feel like sometimes, not sometimes, but I feel like all times, whenever somebody is accused of a thing, an accusation is made that requires accurate investigation in order for us to get a clear understanding of what's going on. And oftentimes, like victims or people who have made those allegations feel invalidated because people feel the need to investigate.
That's the gray area with the person that making the claim. Their past may be bigger than the claim they're trying to make to their own perception. For their own, they mud to be bought out, they dirt to be bought out, plus that, so it's a thin line.
So do you think that there actually is a lack of validation when they feel offended, or do you think it has to do with the internal components?
They're not validated, like you just said. The lifestyle that leads them down that path it's a clear percentage that it can't happen because that goes on frequent in those lifestyles.
So I sometimes what I hear you saying is that there is a fear of accountability because accountability means you also are responsible for
put yourself in this situation.
Right. and I feel like accountability needs to happen. So I feel like we have to be accountable for our role in everything that happens in life. If we really want to grow from experiences, if we want to make sure that we mature past experiences, we definitely have to be accountable for our role. Now, that doesn't equate to responsibility, though. So I feel like people who are sexually assaulted now feel more empowered as a result of the Me Too movement because there are people gathering behind them with similar stories and similar experiences and variety of different backgrounds who now say, I support you in your claim, regardless of how much validity that claim has. And there is no investigation done. And you can join that movement. So I think that we have to be people who are still investigating things. And we have to understand that investigating people is not the same as shaming them as victims, right? We're not denying you your right to live in your truth. But if you want justice to be rendered upon a person, right? Anybody who is accused of anything is due a fair trial to prove otherwise. And I understand that can sometimes be difficult. I totally get that. But we have to position ourselves in a place to where if that thing disturbs us so much, the system being fair to a person, right? Then we have to ask ourselves, how do we even expect for the system to be fair to us? We can't deny another human being their right to fairness just because we've been denied to our right,
Right.
To fairness. Because if we do that, that says that we don't have the innate right to make the claim of assault.
Mm-hmm.
That's what that really pans out to be. And I feel like if we become people that understand that component, it will help us position ourselves in a place to where we don't necessarily need the whole collective, crowd and stuff like that. We don't need a whole bunch of people or a movement getting behind us to make these accusations, because we know that's a part of our experience. That's our truth, right? May not be true for the other person. It may not even be true for the person that we're saying is the perpetrator, or the person that we're accusing, right? This is what I see it as, though. You understand what I'm saying? And my thing is, if we establish healthy boundaries in our lifestyle habits, right? There are some things that we can avoid, because just like, this is what I say, right? A regular person wouldn't go in the jungle, right, with a backpack filled with food, raw meat.
Mm-hmm.
A regular person isn't going to do that.
Right.
And why wouldn't you do it? You know that in the jungle, that environment is a wild environment filled with hungry animals, right? That you may not be able to fend off of you. So now you will become a target. So it's about allowing your mind to manifest your truth in a way that you don't necessarily blame yourself, but you hold yourself accountable for better behaviors, right?
What about bitter groupie? Go to the star room. He's gonna be the star, but he'll be out of backup single too. You didn't see that coming, so you put yourself in that situation.
Okay, so and yeah, I think it applies to that too, because then you're the meat.
That's what I'm talking about.
You're the meat, and the people, right? And so then
you got the whole band.
Yeah, so you're the meat if you're a groupie, and you see in your mind, and I think we got to hold ourselves accountable for our mindsets too, the way we think. People are now wanting to hold R. Kelly accountable because they saw Bill Cosby go to jail, right? They saw Harvey Weinstein go to jail. As a result of this, they saw all of this stuff gain ground. Okay. You cannot hold R. Kelly's situation to the same level
nowhere near it
as Bill Cosby. You can't. Bill Cosby targeted these women. R. Kelly was targeted by these women. So that the realities here are very much different, even based on these women's own endorsements. Even though they were underage, according to society's standard, right? As far as the laws, right? Society standards, according to the actions of society, said that they were old enough to be out and make their own decisions and do what they want to do, right? So for me, I think that we have to hold ourselves accountable for where we are in society when it comes to our growth and maturation, and in the way that we conceptualize what's right or what's wrong. And if we do that, I think that we position ourselves in a place to where we better understand the society, the world that we're growing in, right? The culture and the climate that we're growing in. And so, even back then, when Bill Cosby was targeting these women, it was wrong for you to drug a person and take advantage of them sexually.
That's too wrong.
Right. So with R. Kelly, right? These people were offered things freely. Okay. So if whenever in situations where there were substances involved, and that's not even to say that all situations included substances, because they didn't, based on the women's endorsements. And understand, I keep saying based on the women's endorsement. So these are the people that these cases are being pursued for, right? This is what they had to say. So based on some of these women's endorsements, there were no substances involved. Based on the women that endorsed, there were substances, right? Exactly. Based on the women that had substances involved, that was considered to be a benefit. So they were offered these things, like they were offered a certain type of lifestyle. And in their minds, they had conceptualized that this would be something with this person. They had a romantic interest in this person. So I say that not to, like I said before, victim shame, but to hold society accountable for the positioning and the perspectives that they have placed on the situations with R. Kelly and the situations with Bill Cosby and the situations with Harvey Weinstein and so many others, literally. Okay. If we talk about the many people who have been a party to the Me Too movement, we see, let's see, they have 12 people that they've mentioned in particular. Harvey Weinstein up here, Larry Nassar, we have Gilbert, Carrasquillo, Joanne Anceles, Jeff Kowalski. Good grief. They have some interesting names. I can almost understand why they would have to do some of the things that they do. Right. And you got Mario Batali, Benjamin Starks, Mel Watt. I mean, you have a lot of names on this list, okay? What was that guy? What was that guy's name? He was in Congress. I can't remember his name. The one they had the meeting.
With the spy?
Last year. Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell, those two were together. But it was this guy. They talked about him and the way that he regarded women while Donald Trump was president. I can't think of it. But by the time it comes up, I'll comment it. And a lot of you, I'm sure, know about it because they were talking about his previous encounters with young women and sexual assault allegations and things like that. Even and especially the biggest one in the Black community was the Kobe Bryant situation. And that is a whole nother story. Now you're hearing things about Charlemagne and his allegations of rape. But I don't want to really get into that too much because I know I got a show coming up where I'm reviewing this girl's content that talked a lot to that. So this is what I want to say. It's about societal positioning, right? So if an allegation is made and we're doing a comparative analysis of Me Too type of activity, right? So rape activity. I want you guys to understand we cannot compare one different time period to the now time period and try and prosecute. We can't do that because society looks different. The expectation of ages and things like that look different. So that would be just like us going back and saying, okay, we need to hold old people that were still alive at the end of slavery during Jim Crow days.
Well, wouldn't that be a case where the statute of limitations should kind of take care of that?
It doesn't, because in some cases there are no some states there are no statute of limitations open.
Run into the next millennium or whatever. You don't make it in that 10
but
years.
It doesn't. So the laws that apply to that particular time is what should be applicable.
So you should apply the law when the actual act was supposed to happen.
Whenever that thing happened, what were the laws then? So that's what, like I was just about to say about the time period. So if we took somebody that was that married somebody that was 14 years old, right? And they got married in 1940. Right, but then the legal age of consent in 1958. No, we're gonna make it even close. 1958. Okay. The legal age of consent changed to 18. Right. Let's just say that these things happen. So you can't take that person because that's still close proximity, right? Mm-hmm. You can't take that person and now go back and charge them for statutory rape because they married their wife and their wife was 14 and they were 28, 29 at the time, right? You can't do that. That wouldn't make sense, right? And more importantly, if we look at the main contributor in rape cases, when they're doing these sexual assault cases, do you think that the wife would support you pursuing charges against her husband at that point? So it's a lot of things that are a huge component of understanding here. And we talk about the R. Kelly case. I think that there are a lot of things that R. Kelly did that were definitely unethical, immoral. But that's just my personal opinion. That doesn't mean that he did anything that was necessarily illegal for the people that he did these things to. Because I'm sure at that time, if they felt like those things were illegal, they would have spoken up. And I feel like when we say that people need the crowd to help them feel empowered to speak up, I think there is a thing that we're missing also in that piece. They're not quite sure if the thing that they want to speak up about is actually illegal sometimes. And sometimes people do need help around, navigating the legalities of things of their experiences. But I think that the larger thing is understanding how things are either socially accepted or not. A lot of these young ladies were runaways, and I don't want to say that because they were runaways, they caused these things to happen to them. But I do want to talk about predisposure again. We did talk about certain lifestyles being indicative of certain things happening. So I think that we have to be aware, but we also have to do the work on our end as parents and train the kids. Right. We have to train the kids to not be dream chasers, though, to not be groupies. Right. So I want us to have this conversation around accountability. I want us to start having it more often. And I want you guys to understand that in no way is this to take away from the empowerment or the stance of people who have been assaulted. And if you guys are a victim of sexual assault or physical abuse or any other type of abuse in a situation where you're tethered to someone else in a relationship, I want you to understand that you should always feel empowered. You should always feel a sense of entitlement to your truth. If nothing else, that is yours. You own that. And how you decide to render that to the rest of the world around you is 100% your choice. But don't allow a movement where people are now feeling empowered to tell a certain story, right? Don't allow that to be the reason that you feel the way you feel about the things that have happened to you in the past. That's all I'm saying. So let's continue to have this conversation. I want to know how you guys feel about R. Kelly and the things that he has been a party to. I want you guys to know, to tell me how you feel about the many women who have come forth and talked about their interactions with him. And more importantly, I am interested in to know how you feel about the parents of the women that he was involved with, because that's kind of what I want to talk about. So that's what we'll talk about in the part 2. I want to thank Kel for his contributions. Hopefully you guys were able to hear him. I'll go back and I'll review this and I'll find out if that's a good space for people to sit in when they're rendering their reflections, or if it's just better that they join in with the link or whatever. So that's all I've got. And today is Motivational Monday. And so I want to motivate you guys to live your life empowered by your truth, right? Your truth may be something that you don't want to step into. Your truth may be something that you are not necessarily proud of. Your truth may be something that makes life very, very difficult in a place that's difficult for you to navigate. Your truth may be that you aspire for greatness, but I want you to be empowered by whatever that truth is and allow that to manifest greatness within you so that you can either overcome the obstacles that you see in your truth, or you can manifest something different or a different outcome based off of what your truth yields for you. But either way, let that empower you to do greatness in today, in this week, in every single step that you take along your journey to becoming. So that is all that I have. I hope that you guys like and share this video so we can have a more collaborative conversation about it. Please understand that if you do not agree with some of the things that I have said in this video, you are still 100% welcome to subscribe and to like and to share your comments, because I am not a person who doesn't believe that other people's perspectives and truths don't have a place. I feel like everybody's truth has a place and a space, and we can learn from everybody. We can learn from everybody. Me, I can learn from everybody. And your experiences may shed a little bit more light or another perspective for me to present. I mean, because there are lots of perspectives around this issue. I think that I've talked about a lot of different perspectives, and I try to bring a different perspective in every conversation because I feel like there are so many, even within myself, right? There are a lot of different opinions and insights around the Me Too movement. It's a lot of different opinions and insights around sexual assault and what rape is and what rape culture is and what that means for American culture and things like that. And I'm here for all of them. But more importantly, I'm here to have the difficult conversations that most people avoid because it makes them feel uncomfortable. Or it means that they have to be accountable for things that they are not yet ready to look at with open eyes and say, okay, this is my truth and this is where I sit. And as a result of that, it's positioned me a certain place. So I just feel like if you got to have a whole crowd to get behind you in order for you to speak your truth, there are some you issues that you definitely need to start working on. And that doesn't mean it's a bad thing. It's just a thing. Start kind of familiarizing yourself with calling a thing a thing. But that's all I got, you guys. Take care of one another. I love you. Thank you so much for your following. Thank you for liking, and thank you for clicking, and thank you for sharing, blah, blah, blah. Please make better choices as a result of what we've talked about today, or as a result of other content that I've shared with you, or as a result of your own personal self-reflection that yielded that you needed to do things a little bit differently in your tomorrow. So, later days.